version of this feeding story is found within each of the four Gospels, once, if not twice, as it is in Mark and Matthew's Gospel. Something is going on here far beyond lunch. Will you pray with me? Gracious God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be in tune with your love and compassion. Amen. So we've been able to worship here and meet and be the church the way we've been doing for the past 5 months because of some amazing technology. Our director, our assistant director, our cinematographer, our key grip, and our editor, Gabe Francis, has been making this worship online possible. And although I know, and you know, it's no substitute for being in person, sitting in my living room when I'm worshiping, just as you are right now, I'm singing and I'm praying and I'm celebrating and I'm learning. I don't understand how it works, but it's working. This phenomenon we call Zoom has been allowing us to connect in small groups and choir and Sunday school and session meetings, our Wednesday wellness programs, gatherings of every kind. And you know what? Every single time I'm on Zoom, it's a mystery to me how that thing works. But I have to say that very often, over these past 5 months, the power of the personal connections that we've had and the sharing and the laughing and the crying and the learning and the wondering together through discussions on Zoom has been deeply, deeply transforming mentally and emotionally, spiritually, personally. Many, many of you have shared that. And I never would have guessed it, but it's true. So it seems, I'm concluding from all of this, that you do not need to understand everything in order to believe in something. Think about it. Before our hour is up together, your body will have reproduced 10 billion cells. I don't know how that works, but it's true. I don't understand that. But we're alive, and we know something is happening beyond our understanding. We believe a lot of things that we do not even remotely understand. You do not need to understand everything to believe in something. So keep that in mind, I think. It's really important as we begin to explore our gospel story this morning. You see, up until this point in Mark's account, the disciples really do not fully grasp who Jesus is. They have witnessed healings and interactions, and they've heard teachings and parables, and still they do not understand who they are dealing with. And at this point, we hear in the text, Jesus' just loud sigh. I imagine it to be some kind of ancient facepalm. It's one thing for the Pharisees to be asking for sign after sign and to be questioning and wondering. But after 2 massive feeding sessions that included legions, all kinds of people from all over the region, he asks his disciples, why are you still talking about bread? Don't you get it? You know, I really wonder if this isn't the reason why often after Jesus performs one of these signs, he tells his disciples not to tell anyone. And I'm beginning to think it's because he's afraid they will get the wrong message out about who he is and what he came to accomplish. Here's the thing. In the very first line of Mark's Gospel, chapter 1, verse 1, he tells us everything we need to know. And Mark's the only gospel that does this. He begins the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Now, I know that the disciples were not reading Mark's gospel, of course, but they were expecting a Messiah who, as the Hebrew Bible had proclaimed, would liberate and overthrow the Romans. But Jesus was teaching and healing and feeding with compassion and generosity towards all people, not just the Hebrews. And furthermore, he entered into this world, into the Roman world of oppression and suffering and anxiety and confusion. And instead of promising to conquer it, he said he came to serve. And instead of saying that he was going to defeat them with power over them, he said they would be overcome through love. His kingdom ushered in a way of compassion and grace and generosity and service and love right smack dab in the middle of the horror that was that time. It was political, social, religious upheaval like you cannot imagine. Or maybe we can. What kind of Messiah was this anyway? No wonder they were confused. Every healing, every interaction, every teaching, every meal is pointing to a different way, including this feeding story that we read today. Now, if you're like me, you were probably taught some version of this story as the miracle of loaves and fishes. And there's enough. God provides enough. In fact, God is so good, God provides us more than enough. But I'm not so sure about that nice, cleaned up children's version. Because after this abundant meal is served, and they head off to the northwest side of the Sea of Galilee, again, they're talking about lunch. And Jesus says, why? Why are you asking again about bread? Are you just in this with me for what you can get out of me? Are you following for just this temporary thing that I give? Do you not yet understand? So recently, I asked a teacher how it felt when a student just didn't understand the lesson that was being taught. And this teacher described to me a feeling of being personally discouraged, and also discouraged for the students, saying, I just wanted him or her to see the light. And in most cases, she said, I would have to just grit my teeth and move on. And I would resign myself and hope for the possibility that the next concept would sink in. And then eventually, somewhere down the road, they would get it. Indeed, somewhere down the road, they might get it. And I imagine that that's exactly what Jesus must have felt in this interaction with the disciples. He's like, okay, let's try this again. When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets of broken pieces did I have left over? And they said to him, 12. A sign of God's power and authority for all people. Okay, good. Now, and the 7 for 4,000? How many baskets of broken pieces did you collect? And they said to him, 7. Okay, good. Both are signs. They get it. And yes, he must have thought, okay, we're getting there. Maybe they're going to get it down the road. And so I think what we really hear is not frustration on the part of Jesus, but an invitation. It's an invitation to them. It's an invitation to you. I think it's an invitation to me as well. It's an invitation to consider the question that in just a few verses after our reading, Jesus will ask Peter, "Who do you say that I am?" Who do you say that I am? This is the question. Because recognizing who Jesus is reframes an entire life. Because your recognition, my recognition, our recognition allows us to begin to believe even if we don't fully understand. You can believe enough to give following a try, and in following to participate, and in participating to help usher in this upside down kingdom that is brought in with compassion, grace, and love. It isn't about what God provides for you. It's about what you can do in the name of Christ for God. Not because you understand all of it, but because you believe enough to know that it will make life better, because it will simply make you better at life. And not just for you, but for all those people around you. So you're not sure still what this might look like? So we head back into the story then and see how Jesus deals with the crowds. And it's so clear, again and again. It's with compassion, with gratitude, with generosity. So as I had mentioned at the start of worship, we're being invited into a 21-day challenge of learning with an eye toward really understanding our call for being a part of racial healing in our culture, in our country today. So what if we added to that challenge the commitment to try, just for 3 weeks, not to ask God for anything, but instead to be willing, to be committed to loving the people that Jesus called us to love. Can you imagine if we just all committed to only that for 21 days, forgiving the way you have been forgiving, leaning into one anothering, into others firsting, to be compassionate and as generous and as loving as the one we follow. Compassion for those in need, including yourself. Gratitude for whatever you've been given, however small or abundant. And then roll up your sleeves and distribute what is needed to whom it is needed, even if you cannot even begin to understand how it could possibly be enough to make a difference. What if instead of being consumers, we were followers? What if as being followers, we just woke up every morning and we offered ourselves to God in the way that Paul suggests to the Romans? Good morning, God. Here are my hands. Here are my feet. Here is my pain, my loneliness, my grief, my anxiety. Here's my energy, my courage, my strength. my joy. I am making myself available to you. This is what I've got. May it be sacred. Make me as compassionate as you want me to be, as generous as you want me to be, as available as you want me to be. How can I serve? How can I serve love's cause today? Eternal love, thank you for the opportunity, for the privilege to participate in your kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Amen. Can you imagine starting your day like that? Weeks ago, as our Sunday small group was discussing some of the earlier signs of Jesus in Mark's gospel, we came pretty quickly to the conclusion that we are not invited to pray to God for what we want or what we need. We came to the realization that our prayer, and perhaps the only prayer that we are ever to offer, is not my will, but thy will be done. Not my will, but thy will. Isn't it interesting that that's really the only prayer Jesus taught his disciples? So let's not be consumers. Let's be followers and leave his mark wherever we go. Let's not ask for what we want, but instead move into the world serving love's cause, asking what is needed with compassion and grace, generosity, and love. The invitation is that after the meal is finished, it's not to be those consumers who ate their fill and walked away. That's not what we're being called to, because those people are not the ones who really made a difference. Those people who wandered off after they had their fill did not leave the imprint that the Christians left on civilization. It was the ones who continued to follow in spite of their misunderstanding. It was they who came to see that his signs didn't point to what we can get from him, but to how we could leave his mark wherever we go. And do you know, it was their love for one another and the community around them that survived the destruction of the temple, it survived the fall of Rome, and it changed the whole of Western civilization. And here we are. So if a small band of disenfranchised people, Jews and Gentiles, armed only with compassion and generosity and love, could change the world, maybe we can do the same in our world today. In the name of Christ, may it be so. Amen.